hello everyone, and welcome to our workshop today. We're going to be talking about how to make a winning video pitch for the Blue Ocean competition. So throughout this webinar, we'll be giving some tips and tricks and advice on how exactly to make the best um, video pitch that you can. Now, this video pitch is a great opportunity to become more creative and really show the judges what your project is about and how exactly it stands out from others, which is why it's really important to put some more time into this, especially with the upcoming deadline. So first, we'll get started. Shristi, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, my name is Shristi Sood and I'm the president of the Student Executive Committee. I participated in Blue Ocean twice actually, and I placed in the top 100 the first year that I participated.
Cool, cool. And hello, my name is Iveena. I'm also a member of the executive committee, and this past year, my team and I, Recon, won first place. So I'm really excited to give you guys some tips. So I think first let's get started with the Blue Ocean strategy. So this is definitely one of the most important things of the Blue Ocean competition, really, because it's all centered around this one Blue Ocean strategy. And so throughout your entire video pitch, you really want to emphasize, and I believe this is a part of the rubric as well, the Blue Ocean strategy and how exactly it ties to your specific venture or a different type of product. So here I have two types. So you have your Red Ocean strategy, which is like the typical what someone without the Blue Ocean experience would do. And then you have the Blue Ocean strategy, which is where you first create an uncontested market space, you make the competition irrelevant, you create and capture new demand, you break the value cost trade-off, and align the whole system of a firm's activity in pursuit of differentiation and low cost. So really the goal of me showing you this today is that you'll be able to use this in your video pitch in the future. So you want to sort of get across to your audience that you really don't have any other contestants in your market space and that you're creating that new space. You're creating that product which is new, which has its own set of demand, but that demand isn't being split amongst others, which is hence making the competition irrelevant. Then you also want to sort of showcase how you're capturing that new demand, and that goes back to creating that new sort of marketplace. And then aligning the whole system of a firm's activities in pursuit of differentiation and low cost. So one thing that really helped my team and I last year was we made sort of a cost structure breakdown, and I think this was a very helpful slide for the judges to see and see how we were thinking about it on like a per unit basis. And I think that per unit basis is super important because that is what allows you to actually go in and figure out what exactly or what components of your product you can probably cut or change just so it's a little bit better and more cost effective, making you more successful in the long run. So here I have an example of a winning video pitch. So we'll just watch the first like 30 or so seconds. And I'm starting with this because it's a good introduction. And I think the way that they frame the problem statement is really very poignant. It's very good. And it's also showing the judges just why exactly what they're solving is such a big need and big problem. So I'll play this for about the first 30 seconds, and then we'll get back to the presentation.
Our Earth is being destroyed, and we are responsible. Deforestation and pollution have led to the melting of our ice caps and rising sea levels around the globe. A major factor causing both deforestation and pollution are cows and the cultivation of crops necessary to feed them. The growth of soybeans, the main protein supplement used in the current market for fulfilling cow dietary needs, is the second largest driver of deforestation in the United States. Over 1.6 million acres of US farmland is dedicated to growing 5 billion pounds of soy. Furthermore, cultivating a single pound of soybeans requires nearly double the amount of water as other crops such as corn and wheat. Finally, the growth of soybeans rapidly degrades the soil and depletes its nutrients, leading to a never-ending cycle of unsustainable farming practices. Which is why we created
Bugs Feed is the world's first insect-based cattle feed protein supplement.
The first and most important element in our supplements is the crude protein provided, which is near wholly derived from black soldier fly larvae.
All right, so I think So then they start introducing their product and it becomes more of like your typical pitch. But I think that first part, and you can see they used almost a minute of their 4:30. And so that's important because it was really framing the problem statement there. And you could see that they chose like stock videos essentially. And those aren't very hard to find. Just make sure they're not copyrighted. But when you do that and you sort of frame the problem for so long and you show exactly why it's an issue, I think them devoting that amount of time really helped them help their pitch stand out. And not to mention the music in the background was also definitely a contributing factor. So here, let's talk a little bit about what the goal of the video pitch is. So first, like I mentioned before, you want to build up the problem statement, and I think we saw a great example of that in BuzzFeed. And then you also have the opportunity to communicate the viability of your solution and why exactly it's something that can be done. So something that my team and I did was I showed the results of like simulations that I had run that were similar to our product. So by showing those simulations, it sort of showed that we had the concrete behind our concrete. And I think that really helps because it shows that, okay, either you have a prototype or you've done it before, or that you have some sort of expertise in this topic that makes you and your vantage point more unique than anyone else trying to approach this problem. And then finally, this is really good opportunity to present and articulate your idea, and then also provide background and other aspects of the product. So presenting and articulating, I think, is probably one of the most important skills here. And when you're presenting, I would definitely say practice your speech a few times and just figure out and get comfortable, right? It shouldn't be like a super prepared, memorized thing, but it should also not be something that you're just saying. So I have finding that balance between making sure you're being natural with your audience, that you're able to connect with them. Now, obviously, this is a video pitch, so it is a little bit harder to connect, say, rather than in person. But I would definitely say that, I mean, keeping a positive attitude, smiling, and just showing that you want to be there and that you are excited about your own product. Because if you're not excited, no one else will be excited. So your energy that you're giving off sort of through the video is definitely something that's shaping the product and also giving background and other aspects. So you could see that even though their product is mainly focused around that like protein feed, another interesting thing was that they had also looped in a lot of the other climate impacts from that. And I think that's a good reason as to why they made it so far. All right, so steps for a successful video pitch. So first off, you want to start with storyboarding slash mapping out the main points. And this is definitely one of the most important stages because this is where you're getting to see, okay, this is exactly what you need to do. And I think that also helps you sort of break it up and see how exactly you're going to start and end your video. So as you could tell in the other one, they first had like a sort of mashup of these different stock images and stock videos, which they were using to address the problem. But then once we got to actual BuzzFeed, you could tell that I think they were using some other type of PowerPoint or different slides that they had put together for their own project. And so that can be a successful thing that you can use. Another thing you could use is like a whiteboard sort of screening out. And this is really great for storyboarding. And that would be, yeah. So the second one would be planning key details for each speech. And I think this is really important because you have your problem, your solution, market analysis, and then an ERC grid. So in one of the tip of the days on our Instagram, I did talk about an ERC grid, but today we'll go through that a little bit more. And I think these are the key tenets that you need to have in order to stand out. So problem and solution, of course, you want your judges to know what you're talking about. But then market analysis is also super important because in the Blue Ocean competition, that's really the crux of how you're standing out in a blue ocean way, right? Because the blue ocean strategy is that you shouldn't have any competitors and that you're creating your own field. So by doing this market analysis and showing the judges exactly that, they're going to really connect with and resonate with how your idea is a blue ocean idea and it's separate from anyone else's. And then the ERC grid will go through and figure that out in the future. So it's also super important to consider any external video parameters that might make your project and your idea just stand out more. So testimonials, I think, are a great one. And basically what you'll do is you can go to, say, another person who's maybe tried out your product or maybe the target audience of your product and just ask them, would you be interested in this? Or show them the interface of what you've made and just see if they're like liking it. If they're not, then don't get a testimonial. But if they do, just ask them, would you be okay if we put you in our video? And if they say yes, then that's awesome. So a few ways that you can include a video testimony. One, you can take obviously a video of them, but two, if they don't want to, you can have them write down something about your product and how much they like it. And so then you can include that quote as something in your video project. A video pitch. And so that's a great way to show the judges first and foremost that you're really passionate about this idea. You're going out and doing the extra step of actually going out there and like connecting with people who might be using this product, but also it's showing them there's a viable target market and that someone else really actually finds value in your product. Another one that I think is good, and this is something that my team did, is demonstrations. So say if you have like a more sciencey product, so I don't know how BuzzFeed would do this, but for us, what we did was we showed a few of our simulations, and essentially what we did was we showed like what the finite element software looked like and how exactly, like the interface that we were basically looking at. And so I think demonstrations here are also a great thing, especially if you have like an app or something else that's a little bit more virtual. I think either doing a screen recording, which we'll go through later, or doing maybe showing exactly what your product does, putting it up to the camera, and maybe like running a, not simulation, but running a like, I guess, proof of action concept, like showing exactly what your product can do in a short time span is a great way to keep judges engaged, and then also make sure that your product seems viable. And then I think proofread and edit definitely for clarity. This is also super important because you've been spending so much time on your video pitch, but the people who are watching your video pitch are only getting to know like what you're actually giving about this like video and about this product to them. The only thing that they know is what you're giving them. So essentially, if you thought about this super cool marketing plan, or if you think of like a 5-year plan, but you don't include that in the video, they'll never know. And that's the thing with this, because there isn't really a way to connect with the judges as much outside of this video. So this video really needs to have almost every single aspect of what you think would be presenting the best light of you and your product in this stage. So ensuring that you're able to create that storyboard like we talked about earlier is going to be key in making sure that it's sort of a story that flows, that they understand, and that if possible comes back full circle, because that's very like satisfying. And like psychologically, if you come back to the same point that you started, most of the time people will feel like, okay, yeah, this is like a more complete product, a more complete experience. And so that can inherently cause you to place better. All right, so let's talk about how to identify and frame your problem statement. So earlier we had talked about finding problems to solve, and I hope by now most of you guys have an idea of what exactly you're solving. And so identify the overarching problem that you're trying to solve. So BuzzFeed did this with essentially tying to climate change, and that could definitely be something. But climate change doesn't need to be the only thing that you're looking at. You can look at, say, medical care shortage or other types of things like hunger. And so really looking at the larger societal problem that either you're solving or that you think is important in your daily life, because it doesn't need to be a huge solution. It just needs to be a unique solution. And so something helpful that you can do is definitely lay out statistics to present the magnitude of the problem. And I think that was probably one of the most helpful things for us, because we were looking into just how much concrete is being used every day. And something that was really interesting, and I think I recommend everyone else do this as well, is consider the process of the product that you're making right now and if there are any negative externalities. So for concrete, what was happening was right now, as concrete is made, it makes a lot of carbon dioxide emissions. Like this, you don't realize it because you're just walking on the sidewalk. So you're like, oh no, there's no way, like, where's the carbon coming from? But when you're actually looking back into the processes that it creates, that it takes to actually create the concrete, you find that, wow, there's a lot of carbon dioxide. And so if you're able to sort of go back through the manufacturing of the product and see where exactly negative externalities might be, and negative externalities don't exactly just need to be carbon dioxide. It can also be other things like oil spills. Maybe it leads to more wildlife degradation. Maybe it depletes like biodiversity. So all of these other things outside of your actual product, if the current status quo is sort of trending towards these and it's bad, I would highly recommend you go back and look through the process that it's currently used to make this product. And then that is a great way that you can sort of address a current status quo issue with the sort of product that you're trying to make. And then this also leads me into the what if. So I think painting you don't need to paint a dystopian picture. Don't make your pitch very like dark, but you can just add like a one-liner what if. So if this solution is not in place, we'll see an increase in carbon dioxide emissions by maybe 60 megatons over the next 20 years. And so that kind of sort of giving that alternative future without you in it is a great way to show the judges why exactly your product needs to be there and what value it's actually adding. So that's a way to sort of like magnify and extend your impact throughout your video pitch, which is super helpful in showing why exactly your product is great. So now we're going to go through like a few of the different types of, I guess, platforms that you can use to create your video pitch. So first we'll start off with iMovie. I know everyone is fairly situated with iMovie. So this is the most common format that we've usually seen used, but it may not necessarily be the best. Like it certainly works if you're on a time crunch, but now let's talk about some other ways if you are using iMovie to elevate your iMovie. So first you can use a cutaway to picture function. So if you go into iMovie, now I don't have iMovie on this computer, so I wish I could give a demonstration on this, but when you go and you go to add a picture, there's usually a plus sign. And then what you can do is there's three dots to the right, and then it'll show you picture, cutaway, and then slide. So essentially a cutaway will just take your sort of video from the video that you're watching to just a picture and then back. But a picture in picture, what it does is it basically just puts like a logo or like the picture on top of your video, which is usually the most helpful thing here because that's going to help you sort of show like the graphs that you're talking about while you're talking, which is great because it's like a background of you talking and then there's a small thing in the screen that like pops up saying, hey, this is like what exactly I'm talking about. So that's super helpful. And then another thing is like if you're using a slideshow or a presentation, definitely include a voiceover. This is really super helpful because including a voiceover can definitely help you sort of communicate more of the ideas rather than just having music in the background. Like we saw with BuzzFeed's introduction, they had like the stock videos, but then they also had music and they had that voiceover. So the voiceover is super easy to add. You just click the plus sign, and then I believe there's just a microphone and you can start recording. And the other thing with voiceovers though is that you need to, I would say, record it in one go for almost the entire video because usually you cannot recreate sound conditions that are the exact same like 6 hours later. So if you're trying to make it sound uniform, then usually it's your best bet to try and just sit down and do it in one go. Otherwise, you'll like it'll sound very high or very low depending on where you are, the acoustics of the room, and even the time of day, because I think the temperature of your room can also impact how you sound on the like microphone, which is really creepy, but also something to consider. Now, it's also good to use different fonts for different parts of the video, and I think this is great because you'll actually get to sort of show the differentiation between certain parts. And then using transitions to dissolve, fade, cube, etc. for dynamic viewing is also super helpful because it brings people along. And my personal favorite, I think, is the cube, but I know dissolving and fading is also pretty cool. And another thing that you can also do to make it a little bit more seamless is when you have your voiceover and you're switching from different parts, sometimes you can actually fade the voice so it sort of decrescendos and then crescendos again when you start up. And that's super helpful because it sort of signifies a shift in your video as well. So not only is the audience getting that visual shift where they're getting the decrease in like the amount of video there, but they're also getting the decrease in the amount of sound. So the last thing would be to create green screens to layer text over other videos. So now iMovie has titles already, but something that's kind of tedious here is actually using like is actually using titles for every single video because you have to sort of cut and split every single video every single time that you want to put up a text. So something that you can do is online you can use on your computer. I don't think you can do this on the phone. You create green screens to layer text over other videos, and so you select one color, and then you can sort of create slides and then put them over, and then have one color cancel out, and then that'll still have like the rest of whatever you want in the background. So that's also super helpful on iMovie to make it just a little bit more professional. So some other helpful tools for video making include Canva. So we'll go through Canva, and I discovered that they have this pretty cool video feature where you can just record right on Canva, which is super helpful. And then you can also do Google Slides/Zoom for an interactive walkthrough. But I would recommend that if you do this, you maybe go back and use iMovie or Screencastify to actually go through and sort of edit in like an initial like cinematic part in the beginning, which is super helpful in showing that it's not really just you going through slides. Another cool things, these are both whiteboard explanations, so it's called Explain Everything in Doodle Maker. I would highly recommend you check these things out. Essentially, the way they work is that you create certain slides. So just like a storyboard, you'd create different slides out of these like whiteboard figures. And then what it'll do essentially is you give it a speed and it'll actually have either a hand or just a marker drawing it as you talk about it. And this is really cool. So you don't have to draw it or do anything, but you just give it the final result and then it'll have like a pen or a hand just drawing what exactly it is that you wanted on the screen. And so this is super interesting. I was reading somewhere that if you have like the brain works really well when it's seeing something in a process, and like if a brain sees something that goes from unfinished to finished, that's also very satisfying, and psychologically that's a good way to sort of bring closure to your video. And so that might also make the judges remember you more, so that'd be pretty cool. WeVideo I'm recommending because there's collaborative features, which is great. And then CapCut also has a lot of different templates and features, which you might not be able to find on other video making websites. So we'll get into more of the, I guess, video aspects in a little bit, and we'll do some demonstrations. But for now, I think we should also really talk about the Blue Ocean strategy specifics, because those are super helpful in actually making sure that your video project meets the requirements and actually gets good scores from judges. So let's get started with a few of the things. So essentially, I'll go back to the other slide, but Blue Ocean strategy specifics, the rubric states that you should have 3 to 4 of these. And so I think I'm presenting 4 or 5. So just choose 3 of these to include in this and you should be good to go. All right, so 3 tiers of non-customers. So this is a great way to contextualize that market space and also show that you're in line with the Blue Ocean sort of strategy. So what this can do is first in this small red tier, you have your current market, and so this is what's actually there. This one is tier 1, which is soon to be. So maybe if you're having a kids sneaker company, maybe teen sneakers or your soon to be customers. Tier 2 would be refusing. So maybe this is like older men who don't want to buy small kids sneakers. So this is refusing. This isn't the best example, but it's basically showing that this is a group of people who are refusing it right now, but in the future you'll get to them. And then tier 3 is unexplored. So this is a market that people typically don't associate with the current market or the current product that you're giving. But because your product is so unique, you'll find a way to sort of extend it to these unexplored customers. And so this is a great way to show that you're sort of building outside of the current market space because you're literally adding on more and more and more customers in the future. This is also a great way to show that there is room for your solutions growth, and this demonstrates forward thinking. And if you're able to pair this, I think, with a 5-year or 10-year plan in terms of marketing, I think you'll be in a very good spot because you're essentially showing them soon to be refusing and then unexplored. So that's super helpful. The next one, I think this is probably my favorite Blue Ocean sort of strategy or graphic that you can put up there. And I think this really encapsulates the Blue Ocean strategy. So something you can do is create a green screen in front of this video while you speak, or just like I said in iMovie, you can always do a picture to a picture. And then essentially you can screenshot this and then just have this in front of you while you're talking. And then this really is great because it emphasizes that you've considered each and every aspect of the ERC grid. So let's just talk about the ERC grid if you haven't joined one of our webinars before. But, excuse me, so essentially what happens is you want to start with what you're eliminating. So what factors has the industry long competed on that should be eliminated? So maybe this is a certain metric that they push on consumers saying, oh yeah, we're the best because we do this the best. And you're going to show that either that metric is wrong or that it's not something that really needs to be part of the picture anymore. Or you can also show that this is something that we need to get out of the industry. So like for us with concrete, we were like, okay, no, we should eliminate carbon dioxide emissions as they stand in the current industry. So the next one will be raising. So what factors should be raised well above the industry standards? So this is sort of a product of competition, or if it's like a monopolistic marketplace. So if you have one big actor there, they might be cutting some corners. And so you're going to show that your product basically is a lot better than these other products, but in that industry standard. So say if someone uses a certain color and like they only use a certain percentage of a dye, if you use more, well, then your product first and foremost is better. But also you're showing that you're raising the industry standards. So just by way of your product being there and consumers having that option, the other products are also going to become better. So it's just a net benefit. And then reducing. So which factors should be reduced well below the industry standard? And so, like we mentioned earlier, I think we used concrete, the carbon dioxide emissions for this. And this was super helpful because you're showing that this is something that needs to be eliminated from the actual industry right now. And then creating. So what factors should be created that the industry has never offered? I would personally say that this is probably the easiest part because this is sort of the unique patentable part of the product that you're making. So for us, we were looking at concrete. So it was looking at rebarring, which is essentially sort of the bars that they put in place to set the concrete over time. And so our unique idea was that we'd use sort of recycled material to make these rebars. And so that's something that hasn't really been explored. And so that was like our creative aspect, which is definitely something that helps. And that's also something that you can show that you're creating that new realm for customers. So I think the raise and create factors of the ERC grid are really there to help propel you out into the 3 tiers of non-customers. So through that new create function, you'll be able to get to those people who have been unexplored. And then eliminate and reduce, I think, just sets you out into like the soon to be, or it just differentiates you a little bit more from the competition. Not that there should be any, because you're using the Blue Ocean strategy. Okay, next up we have the buyer utility map. So this is the contextualization of your product, and you can show this grid or demonstrate it through words, but it really helps you consider the strengths of your solution. So here we have for the current industry focus when you're looking at these different key factors. So you have productivity, simplicity, convenience, risk reduction, fun and image, and then environmental friendliness. So what you're basically showing is currently where is the industry at on each of these 6 utility levels, levers. And then where you're going to sort of introduce your new focus is by looking at your Blue Ocean offering and how exactly you're changing the market. And so you can see for most of these, the Blue Ocean blue dot is sort of a little bit ahead of the rest of the red. So that's another way to really showcase. I think this is a good one too, because it shows that you're sort of a little bit ahead of the rest of the industry. So this is a good tool that your judges can see that you've really thought it through and that you're going forward. So I think this is the last one that we have, but it's called the strategy canvas, and this works very well in conjunction with the ERC grid. And I think that that's super helpful with the ERC because you're going to have your sort of high offering level and then your price, number of physical buttons, business applications, PC-like performance. So this is a great way to sort of show them the strategy canvas and show like the different sort of competitors that you might have. So here you have iPhone, and you can see that they were trying to use this and really going up and higher and higher. So this is showing a lot of different types of like aspects of the product. So what's super helpful here is they start with price, which is super important, and then variety of models. So they're saying that that's low, but that's unique because that's good. And it's like just get the iPhone, and that singular product basically, or that simplicity is something that really helped them. And so then they're showing like what they're reducing. So they reduce the number of physical buttons and then business applications and PC-like performance. So PC-like performance, I think they were talking more about having to switch between tabs and having like a desktop interface. And then here, they're raising mobile internet, they're raising style and fun. I think the big thing with iPhone was that they had this new sort of product interface, and it was super simple. It was very pretty also. Like before that, phones didn't really look like the sleek iPhone that we have today. And so I think that was definitely something that they raised in the marketplace. And ease of use, of course, the user interface for Apple is pretty good. And then create. So you can see here, I think this is a great distinction to draw. that they actually had a single line there and then they only had iPhone going forward. So feature phone and smartphone were sort of left in the past. And psychologically, this is a great way to show your judges that your product is really over the line, going extra beyond the finish line. So here they talked about customization through the App Store. Now, I'm not sure if none of the phones before had customization, but just the fact that they're showing it there and in such an easy way is really great to show the judges exactly how you're a little bit different. So now let's get into some live demonstrations. So I will try and share my screen. We'll see how this works out. But first we'll do Canva and then we'll sort of investigate Screencastify. All right, one sec. All right, let's see. One sec. I'm just going to sign into Canva real quick and then we can get started with this part.
While Iveena's getting that sorted out, I'm just gonna start replying to some of the questions out loud. So Pratyush asked, will we be provided with the meeting recording? It'll be posted on our YouTube channel, so you can just look there and you'll find it. A to Cherith, I'm sorry if I'm saying your names incorrectly. A high school senior can participate in the competition, and the final date of submission is February 18th. Anybody in high school can participate, but you cannot participate if you're in college. To Vincenzo's question, should we use all of these resources or is few enough? In my opinion, I'd say the more the merrier. This is kind of what's making you like special and kind of distinguishing you from the competition and the other people in the competition. So I think it would be really nice if you can use as many of these resources as possible. Is there a specific rubric? If you look on our website, blueoceancompetition.org, you can find the rubric that you should follow. How do you advise keeping it under 5 minutes? So what my team did is we made our script and we kind of made it as lengthy as we possibly could. And then we timed it and see how kind of like long it took us. And then after that, we kind of cut it down to see like, oh, like maybe this part is too long or maybe that part is too long. And also parts where you have like a visual to supplement, you don't necessarily need to talk about as much because everything's being kind of portrayed by the visual itself. So taking that into account. I'd say also when it comes to making your script and keeping it under 5 minutes, focus on what's important. So like your key aspects, like your problem is really important, but that can also be kind of summarized in a few sentences. But like your product description, that's one part where I tell people never cut down on that because your judges essentially have no idea what your product is. They have to figure out entirely what your product is, how it functions, all of the details. So keeping that section as detailed as possible is something that I highly recommend. Your target market is something that you should kind of explain, but again, doesn't need too long. I think just looking at like making sure you're including all of the essential information, but not like going off on a tangent. Also including like numbers because those are very concise and clear and they get the point across. When doing market analysis for the video, is it okay to do nationwide or is global market analysis better? I think it's really up to you, and I think it depends on the purpose of your product. A lot of the time you'll kind of want to like pilot a product specifically only in your country. So I'd say probably look nationwide if you're like thinking more about like initial stages, but you can also include how it can scale to the global market if that's like kind of something. In terms of participation certificates, I believe everybody will receive some sort of participation certificate.
Yeah. Yeah, they do.
Sorry?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, everyone gets a
Everybody will
participation.
receive a participation certificate, even if you don't place. Does the problem only have to be associated with science topics? No, your problem can be anything. For example, my group, our problem is discrimination in the hiring field. So your problem can really be anything. And yes, everyone gets a participation certificate. Okay, Iveena, back to you. And you guys can keep popping your questions in the chat if you haven't.
Yes, thank you to Shrishti for answering all those questions. And great questions, everyone. All right, so we'll get started with looking at the Canva. So I just pulled this up and I will start sharing my screen. Alrighty, let's see. Alrighty, so I know my screen share is loading. One sec. Okay, so here, this is just a presentation I made like a few months ago, but I'll just be using it as an example. So essentially here you have your presentation, and I think there are different slides on here. So Canva is super user-friendly in that you can really make very pretty videos without much effort, which is really nice. And they have a lot of great sort of templates and slides. So like we were saying earlier, you don't really want to cut down on your solution, but if you include your solution in these slides and then present it like that, this is super interactive and super great. So essentially what you'll do is once you open your Canva and say you have, this is my like pitch, not that it is, but just click present and then you want to go to present and record. So this is a super cool thing that you can just use to sort of record. And like you're seeing here, this guy, when he's recording, there's basically a circle and it has his name. And I think this is a little bit better than using like Google Slides and then using Zoom just because it's very seamless and you can see that the circle, it's a little bit different and it's a little unique and it also just seems like you're popping in there. So then what you want to do is you can go next. It's not going to let me record just because I'm already on the Zoom, but what you can do here is, I don't know if you guys can see this, but essentially there is a timer. Okay, I'll just hold on. Okay, so essentially there's a timer and in the top, once you start recording, you'll get to see that. You can see it's sort of bringing up the microphone and everything. And then on the side over here, you can also add some notes for you to remember. And so this is a very good interface to sort of use when you're recording. And then, oops, one sec. Set up your camera and microphone. Well, I'm not recording right now. So essentially, yeah, this is a great way to, you can just click start recording. It'll give you a 3, 2, 1. And then there's also a stop recording button once you're done, and that's super helpful. And also another thing that I really liked about this was the timer at the top, because as Shrishti mentioned earlier, you want to keep it under 5 minutes. So by being able to see how much time you're spending, this is also a great way to practice because you're able to see which slides exactly and what concepts you're giving a little too much attention to or a little bit less attention to. So this is a good way to map out your timing as well. And so then what you can do is you can just click on this right arrow over here and that'll take you to the next slide. And it'll also take your presentation to the next slide. If you're not comfortable with like just having your face there, which I do recommend you have your face there, it makes it a lot more interactive. Another thing you can do is just do the recording and then it won't have like a bar saying your name and then like speaker, like as you can see right now, the blue dots are like kind of going in and out, or the blue rectangles. But once you're there, it won't do anything like that. It'll just have it in the background of your recording. So it'll just look like the slides going through, which isn't as interactive. So I highly recommend you use Canva and then also get the image. But if you're not able to, then that's a second good option. Canva is also super great because there's so many templates, like I mentioned before, and it's really very seamless. So it looks pretty good, and I think it would impress the judges that you put so much time and effort into them. And then also you can go back and revisit those other types of Blue Ocean strategy sort of indicators. And then if you put those on the slides here, it's super easy to communicate that with your audience. So that's one of my favorite ways to make like video presentations. And then now we'll head over to Screencastify. One sec, I will just switch this over right now. Okay, share screen. Okay, here. So the next one is Screencastify. So the way I got to this was essentially you just look up Screencastify and what it'll do is you can go and it'll be different. Actually, I'll just share it from the beginning. So you'll just go to my videos and then sorry, it's loading. Oops. All right, well, that is not good. It's not responding. But essentially what it's doing is here. Okay, yeah. So these are all the videos that like I've recorded. And so Screencastify, it's good if you're on a Google Chrome. That's something you can use to sort of record your screen. So here I was just recording some code and recording some like other like Onshape stuff. And so this is super cool because you're able to just record exactly what's going on your screen, and then you're able to put it together into a sort of video. So once you have, if you are just recording your slides like that, or if you have some other type of stock video or image that you want to share, then what you can do is you can obviously save it here. And I think they give you 16 free recorded videos per month, which is super awesome. And then what you can do is just go to edit. And then in edit, I've already put, I think, two videos. Yeah, two separate videos. So essentially what you can do here is that you can add and crop these types of videos. So if I go here, I can sort of crop the screen so it doesn't include like the tabs up here and everything. And just another thing, I know it looks low res when you're sort of doing it here, but there is a disclaimer that once you finish and like record everything, and you're going back and actually downloading it, it downloads it and yeah, you get a downloaded version that has a much higher resolution, so it doesn't look as grainy, I guess. So yeah, you can crop first, which is super awesome. I don't know if you can do that in Canva. And then also what you can do is if you want to make like a shared, I think, Google account for your team, this becomes a very good tool then because it doesn't need to be just one person editing. You guys can all sign into the Screencastify using the Google account that you've created. And so this is a great way to collaborate offline. So say someone wants to edit their video, but they won't get home until later at night, you can just have them have the password to your like shared account. And then the video is accessible on almost any device, which is awesome. So you can see here, we cropped that video. So now it sort of zooms in a little. And then another thing you can do is blur. So say if you have like a name or something that you don't want in the background, you can just blur that part. And so like if you have a logo or something behind you, you can just put it back there. And that way you don't have to really like refilm the video again if you have some information that you don't want to share. So that's also super helpful. Another thing that I was talking about earlier was that text. So another thing you can do here is on the right, you have your text here. And so you can use your photo. There's a few other ones as well. So depending on the mood of what you're trying to set there, you can absolutely use different text boxes, resize them, put them around. But I think most of the text should probably come from a pre-prepared presentation just because when you have, this isn't like a full like PowerPoint editing access thing. It's more so just something that you can use to sort of put your videos together. So I would use this as sort of a final step, but if you're able to, or like the cinematic part in the beginning, if you want to create that kind of video too. And then you can also add, I believe, voiceovers and music. So if you go here and for the sound, sorry, I cannot find the sound. One sec. I think there should be a feature. I don't know if I can see all the features because of Zoom bar, but you should be able to add some sound as well. And if not, if you're not able to find it either, you can always just download it to iMovie and then record the voiceover on there or just add some soundtrack music from iMovie's library. So there are lots of options for sure. And Screencastify and Canva are definitely two things that you can use to make a better quality video submission. It's super important to make sure that your video submission is quality because, again, this is the only thing that your judges are seeing for this project. And so you want to make sure it's the best thing that you can show them. So we'll go back to our presentation now. I think we're almost at the end. And feel free again to drop any questions in the chat. Yes. All right. Okay, so I'm switching over. Screen share. Okay. So we've gone through these two platforms. Okay, I think it's loading. Yes, it's loaded. All right, so two versatile platforms that you can use, Canva and Screencastify. And one of them is more the presentation, and one of them is more post-video editing. So there are distinctions there. But again, I think I'll go back to the slide where I have like all the other platforms you can use. And we're not giving you like, you can only use these platforms. If you have a preferred platform that you'd like to use, absolutely feel free to use those. But these are just some that we recommend for ease of use, stuff that we've used before as well. I'll just go back here if anyone right now wants to take just like a screenshot or anything of it here. This is in addition to iMovie and then Screencastify. I'll give you guys like 20 seconds or so. All right. I hope you guys got a picture of this real quick. If not, of course, we have the recording so everyone can go access that in a bit. And then, yeah, so apart from that, we would highly recommend that you check out other winning pitches, and it really gives you an idea of what the judges are looking for. Like there's a cool Respire one here that looks like a fitness band. And then there's a lot of different ones. So be sure to check this out. On YouTube, you can just search Blue Ocean Competition 2023, and the top 100 pitches should come up here, and then you'll be able to see more and more of some good pitches. And I think this is a really great um, sort of exercise you and your team can do to really get with the best and see exactly what's winning. And maybe you guys can emulate that and win as well. So thank you for joining today. As always, if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. Trishti, are there any questions that we should address?
Yeah, there's been like 2 or 3, and you guys can keep asking. Is there any example for the videos? So if you go to our YouTube channel, Blue Ocean Competition, you will find all of the past winners, all of the past submissions. Like that'll be there so you can look at those. There's like many, many, many examples. You do not have to use Canva. These are just a couple of suggested platforms because in the past we've received a lot of questions about like kind of what kind of platform should we use or how should we make our video. So there's no obligation to use really any of the platforms that we talked about today. These are just some of the suggestions we have and some of the stuff we've seen that works in the past. Can you mention international brands and companies to compare the marketing video? Yes, just make sure you're in the same market. So like, let's say if you're talking about a company that's based in the US, make sure your product is also talking about the market in the US. Don't like your product shouldn't be talking about the market that's in India, but then your competition be in the market that's in the US, because then that's not necessarily a viable comparison. It is not compulsory to make a 3D product. Our product was a website with subscription plans. I've seen a lot of apps that have placed in the past. It can totally be a physical product, but it does not necessarily have to be. Iveena, I think this is a question specifically for you. How did you guys create your animated visuals in the Recon video?
Yeah, so we used a few different methods for this. So when I was talking about the stock images, like we have this one of like sort of a factory polluting, and so we got these from Pascal or Pexel, Pexel, and essentially they have a large range of these animated visuals where it's like coming up. Another thing that we used was creating just using things that like were moving, and we find GIFs as well. And then, as I mentioned before, you can use the green screen on iMovie to actually layer that and put it in. So you can select a color. So we used green because no one was wearing green. And then you're able to put that on top and just have that as like a visual there. I'm sure if you look up iMovie green screen as well, you can sort of see some more examples on that, and it really helps. And then another thing that we used was for our slides, we did the picture-in-picture cutaway, but what we do was we do multiple pictures at once so that it would look sort of like they were moving or that there was a lot of activity on the screen. So that was a little bit more stimulating as well. So in recap, I guess, 1, try using Pexel, 2, using a green screen, or 3, just having a lot more information on the page and then having it sort of like pop up and go away so it seems more dynamic.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much. Yes, you can make a video about food supply. That's great. Iveena just went over a couple of apps where you could make like your animated visuals and 3D product type thing. Do you need a product prototype? You do not need a product prototype. However, like Iveena had said earlier, the judges are only seeing what you're putting into that final video. They're not necessarily seeing like the hours and hours of thought that have been like put in the past and like everything that's kind of happened. They're only seeing what's in that video. So I would always say if you can include a prototype, or like not even necessarily a prototype, but if you can like kind of make like a computer design prototype, or honestly like AI is so useful these days, like maybe looking to that to kind of make a visual of your prototype just so it's understood better by the judges. I feel like that would always help your pitch. Iveena, this is another question for you. Did you guys use the pitch template for Recon?
So I don't believe that we did. We created our own on Google Slides and we liked designing it together. We just sat down and went through it together, but we did not because we found that it would be more helpful if we used a different one and that we were able to like customize it to our needs. So I think we settled on sort of like a grayish one because we were doing like concrete and carbon emissions. That was more fitting. And then yeah, so for the pitch template, we didn't use like the Blue Ocean pitch template, but we did use elements from it. So feel free to like create your own. Like I said, Canva has a lot of really good templates that you can play around with, and you can always like if you find a template that you like, you can always change the color to match your product a little bit more. So don't let color be like a block, I guess. Yeah, so we customized our own, and I think you guys could too.
Okay, yeah. I think we also did the same. We kind of like made our own thing. And there's like Canva is a one platform where you can find a lot of great slides templates. And like I know my group too, we had so much fun with like designing it and playing around with the colors and the visuals and all that stuff. Can you tell me more about the Choice Award? So that's basically an award that you'll win. So I believe you have to place in the top 100 to win it. Once you make it to the top 100, it's going to be the video that has the most likes. What are all the awards given to position holders? So there's a couple of different awards you can win. So there's the People's Choice Award, then there's first place, second place, third place, in which you'll win like actual money. Um, and then there's the People's Choice Award. There's, I think, best environmental product. Then there's also, um, I believe the top 10 high schools that receive like that submit the most submissions. Um, and I think those are all the roles for which you'll actually win something. Um, for everything else, like you will get a certificate, but you won't necessarily be presented with like money or anything else. Do you have to participate on behalf of a high school? No, you do not. You can just like you can participate with people from different schools too. That's completely all right. We just kind of use that because typically when you do participate with a club or with teachers, you tend to have a better, like final product. So working with them would probably help. Does anyone have any other questions? We can put them in the chat now. Okay, it seems like nothing else. Can we participate individually? Yes, you can participate alone. But we do recommend having a group just because it is a lot of work to take on your own, and we've seen that groups kind of like have a better end product. So with that, thank you guys all so much for coming. I hope you guys learned a lot of new things, and we will be posting this webinar to YouTube, so check out our YouTube channel if you would like access to it. Let us know if you have any questions. We also do have the Kajabi community group chat, so if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask there. Thank you guys all so much for coming, and thank you so much to Iveena for presenting. She did an amazing job. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.